So in this video, we're going to talk to, again, um, international business owners. You're not a US person, you want to raise capital in the United States. You have to realize that you have to use a different approach, different regulated platforms than, say, for instance, US investors and investment companies would use. You can't use a lot of the things that you see US private equity companies doing and their investors, and those type of structures are not really ideal for international investors because you're non-US and you're international. And so we talked before, we were talking about crowdfunding platforms, and after speaking to writing your offer memorandum, saving those time and costs, consulting briefly with your securities lawyer, getting a broker dealer on board, or using a Reg CF crowdfunding platform in a US business to raise up to $5 million. That's one thing. Now we're going to talk about raising more than $5 million. And so some crowdfunding platforms have their own or are also broker dealers, licensed broker dealers themselves. So they're not only crowdfunding platforms, but they're also licensed broker dealers who are registered with FINRA. And what this means is that they can actually also deal with things like, on the crowdfunding platform, they can use it for what are essentially private placements. So let's say if we did a private placement in Barbados, which is basically like setting up a sort of a limited partnership with a general partnership. You could do that in Barbados. You could use a Canadian limited partnership. And then what you would do is you would register under Regulation D your private placement as required by US regulations. But then to issue the promotional documentation, you would want to do that through a broker dealer. Well, some crowdfunding platforms are also broker dealers. So now in this case, you could use where this is different is you would, let's say you still have a US business, because crowdfunding requires the investment to be in a US business. You can then work through the crowdfunding platform to not only do crowdfunding to retail investors, but you can do what's called a sort of a private placement via a crowdfunding platform to accredited investors. This is still a plus because at the end of the day, it is the regulated crowdfunding platform and the broker dealer. They are a regulated platform. They're a regulated platform, and this actually makes it better, a little bit better, quite a bit better in terms of issuing securities and raising capital in the United States. But for international investors, we still recommend that you should have a private investment fund, and ideally either hire an asset manager or a fund manager, or set up an asset manager, your own asset manager or fund manager, to manage your own private investment fund, because that way you have now a regulated entity which basically is being used to raise investment capital, and then you can work directly through a broker dealer to issue those securities into the United States. Now, there is another crowdfunding platform where you can raise up to $75 million. This is called Reg A+. There have been, I think last year, there were over 100 Reg A+ deals done, and where you're raising up to $75 million. But in this case, you have to have had a US business for more than 2 years with audited financials, and all those things have to be in place. And so for those who don't have a US company, it's of tremendous foresight. What you can do is you can immediately set up a US company and put up a business plan and set up the business, and then do up to $5 million of crowdfunding. And then as soon as you've hit 2 years, then you're eligible to go and do Reg A+, which is kind of like what they call it, a mini IPO, where you can raise up to $75 million. You can raise up to $75 million not only from international investors, from US investors, but international investors. Again, Reg A Plus is a US, it is a US regulated platform, which is really ideal. And the big part of it is after you've onboarded with a crowdfunding platform, what you have to do then is you are responsible for running the marketing promotion, probably using digital marketing to find investors to invest in your project. Currently there is a one noticeable program going on, which is called Going Public. Going Public is a program, an investment program in the United States about raising capital via Reg A+. It's kind of similar, the format is kind of similar in some ways to Shark Tank, where each episode tells you about a business that is trying to raise money via Reg A+. But of course, the good thing about doing that Going Public process, and mind you, not everyone does this, but the good thing about it is, of course, a television program, which is streaming on television or whatever, is a really good way to get the word out and to market your project. But of course, what most people do is they either hire a media company or a marketing company, or they run a campaign themselves. They may have access to networks of high net worth investors, family offices, and you can promote. Once you're onboarded onto the Reg A+ crowdfunding platform, you can promote from there. So if you have aspirations of raising capital in the US in the long run, you can solve a lot of your problems if you make good long-term decisions and invest in setting up a platform in the US, a company in the US, using a crowdfunding platform that has a broker-dealer, and also using a crowdfunding platform that can do Reg A+, and also has a broker-dealer. These platforms are really giving you access to raise capital, to run a business in the US, and raise capital in the US market. So in the next video, we'll talk a little bit now about Canada.